There we go. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this session, this breakaway session that we are facilitated by Peter Friese. Let me give you a little bit of introduction. Peter is the founder and the head consultant at NORDISK Praxis, coaching leaders and executives and teams of leaders in and amongst Denmark, Greenland, and Norway. Peter held the position of vice president at VIA University College, the largest Danish university of applied science, for 9 years. And he is the rector and CEO at Peter Sabroe Seminariet. That is the National Institute for Social Educators in Aarhus. As a rector, Peter Friese initiated and managed long-term programs assisting in different countries as Russia from 98 to 2004, Estonia 94 to 2000, South Africa 1999 to 2004, and in China from 2002 until now, in building and developing programs concerning child and youth care work, social pedagogy, and social education. He is a psychological candidate authorized by the Danish Psychologist Association. He was a leading name in Denmark in systemic family therapy and systemic network therapy, and the author of best-selling textbooks in this field. He worked as a supervisor and coach, giving seminars and performing long-term training programs for professionals in Denmark, including as different fields as people working with drug addicts, children in residential institutions, family treatment on a daycare basis, institutions for mentally retarded or impaired, and leadership training and coaching. Over the years, he served as an expert on formal education on lifelong learning by the European Community in Brussels and the European Council in Strasbourg. Peter is the co-founder and for 10 years chairman of the board for the international well-known training project, the KaosPilots, a 3-year leadership and business development program. He was rewarded as the youth program for the year in 1994 by Unesco. I asked Peter about his knighthood, and he tells me an interesting story. He says, please don't call me sir anywhere else but in England. But he says, a young person at the previous conference he was at in Kimberley in South Africa approached him and asked, do I call you sir? And he said, you are the only one that can call me sir. So please welcome Peter Friese, and we are waiting patiently to learn more from his presentation.
Well, thanks a lot for the introduction. And it's really true. I met this kid in the safe park in Kimberley, and I don't know how he picked up on the news that the Green knighted me. So we had this very small alliance, him and me, that he would be the only one, I think he was 12 years old, in the world to call me sir. And we had a lot of fun with that. Thank you for the opportunity to give this presentation. I think enough is said about who I am and what I did. Maybe the most important titles, I often say to my kids that I would have preferred a knighthood from my children. To be the best father in the world would be more important. But for some reason, they never gave me that medal, so I stick to the other one. I think the reason I'm invited here is that I'm a long-term friend of the NACCW. I started my cooperation in 1999 by coincidence. I went to South Africa to do a round trip, find the good partners, and I ended up in an office in Cape Town with a woman called Merle Alsop. And we had a wonderful conversation and started a long-term cooperation from there. I can't go into that, but maybe you could say that in this latest year, I'm maybe a distant friend of the NACCW. So some time ago, the executive management asked me you have this ability of seeing something that's not there yet. We saw that before. Seni claims actually that I'm the father of the safe parks, which is a wonderful compliment, but definitely not true. But it's true that together we started the first ever 2 safe parks. So maybe the father was there in the beginning. That's a normal thing, many countries, but then she would definitely be the mother of safe parks, since they have taken it till totally another level with between 15 and 100 safe parks all over the nation. I'm really proud to have been a small part of that. So she says, well, from your distance, what do you see in the NACCW that we should do and to keep us alive and kicking, vivid and innovative? And I wrote a paper for the executive management, 5 different proposals. The way I'm built, I actually thought, let's do it all, but not realistic. So what they said to me, they said, many interesting suggestions, but we think the most important for the time being would be your proposal to work with the young leaders. We really need to work on that. And what would you suggest? And I suggested a kind of training program for young leaders in the organization and the affiliated organizations around NACCW. And they said, what a wonderful idea. When can we start? And as most of you would know, there are many things to consider before you can start a training program, a long-term one even. But we agreed that we should try to work on it. And this session is part of my work on it. Because my response was, I would love to chair or even do a long-term program with young leaders. But if we have to do it inspired by the Danish style, the Scandinavian way, as the safe parks were many years ago, then we have to start in a typical Scandinavian way. And that would be to go into dialogues with people who would benefit from the program. So during the last 6 weeks, I've interviewed 11 young leaders pointed out by the organization, most of them from inside, but also some of them from affiliated partners and even 1 or 2 totally outside. So I have interviewed them an hour with each of them, asking them questions about what kind of work do you do? What are you actually leading or managing? And most important, what would you need to improve your leadership? Do you know the feeling that sometimes you're in a problem as a leader and you look in your toolbox and you think, what can I do now? And you look down and it looks empty. So like, mind my language, shit, I don't know what to do. Or I just made an awful mistake. What will I do now? I have doubts about what I'm doing here. So I asked them questions about that. Tell me about your needs of learning, actually improving. And I'll tell you a little more about that. Could you shift, Francisco, to, you see I dropped the who am I and also 20 years with the NACCW. So go forward to middle managers. Can you do that? Are we there? Can you confirm that, Francisco? Can you confirm the PowerPoint?
Yes, sorry, I am here. I was muted.
Okay.
So you want me to start from the beginning?
Yes. And then go forward to middle managers. Picture of some.
There we go.
Dolls.
Is it this one, Peter?
I can't see it, so I'm hoping.
Hang on. I need to share the screen. I'm so sorry.
Okay, started sharing. Yeah.
Don't close it.
And then. So you're on the right PowerPoint.
It's repeating.
Yeah. And go forward. Who am I? You heard? Yeah. So before I talk about the concrete needs of what did they say, the young leaders, let me just show you this cartoon thing from a Danish paper on leadership. But as the text says, middle managers. Why would I talk about middle managers? And it would be because young leaders are typically the people in the middle. So they are leading other people, and in that sense, they try to be leaders over them, if you use that kind of language. But normally, they're not the executives in organizations. So there is a lot of research about what does really make an organization work. Any organization, NGO, private, public, doesn't matter. And the answer is totally the same whenever someone makes research. We often tend to think that great leaders, that's what make organizations really work. And of course, it doesn't really harm an organization to have great leaders. Or some others would say leadership doesn't really matter. It's the people on the ground who are doing the real job. But when you look at research, for instance, which kind of organizations really succeed, you get back to the same answer almost every time. It's about the leaders between the top and the bottom. What are these people doing? What is a young leader then doing? Well, they're, for instance, first of all, they're the nearest leader to people on the ground. So they would lead child and youth care workers, social workers, or people without any degrees or anything. So that would be important. But at the same time, they would try to understand what the top management is saying. And they would try to translate it to the people on ground level. As you heard, one of my last positions, I was really a top executive, one of the 3 largest universities in Denmark, far away from 40,000 students and 3,000 professors and so on. So we would send out a lot of, I hope, clever messages about where to go on a strategic level. But how do these messages reach our staff on the ground? It's reached by translation, and the translators would be the middle managers. A lot of them are younger leaders compared to a senior like me. So middle managers try to make people on the ground understand the visions and the strategic sentences and the strange language very often. Where should we go with this organization? 3 points we should improve during the next 5 years and so on. So they're translators, and that's really hard work actually. And on the same time, they also translate upwards what is actually going on the ground. So as organizations grow, like the NACCW and everyone else, be it UNICEF, be it my university, be it Apple, any business, as these organizations grow, the pressure on the young leaders and the middle managers gets bigger and bigger. And actually, they also should try to lead upwards. They should try to translate and help the executives about what's going on and what are the real needs. So, could you change from fiscal? So, there's a lot of pressure on these people. Could you please change the PowerPoint? Switch. You there? Mm-hmm. please switch to the next.
Just sorry, Peter. My humblest apologies. I'm going to do that, but I just want to exit the screen. Just hang in there. I just want to stop the share quickly and then change because we got some feedback here. So do I do this? Just minimize this. Just hang on, Peter. I am here. Okay, so we're back. That should be better. Now let me just go to share screen again. Okay, so now I need to just go down. Hang on, no, not yet.
Nice picture.
Yes. So do you want that screen?
No, go ahead. Go ahead, and next one. Yeah. No, that's one too far.
Education.
So, sorry for the switching. So now to what did all these young leaders say when I interviewed them? They said, as you see on the screen, we need more training, we need more support, we need more learning, practice, time to look at ourselves and our own practice. When I asked them, doesn't someone help you? I mean, where are the others, the colleagues, the leaders, the managers, the executives? And they say, well, there's a lot of help actually. And we are very, very proud to work in this organization. It does so much good. So we get supervision and we get advice when it comes to the concrete work, working with the child and youth. So in the direct work, there's always someone to ask. But we get a lot less when it's about our own leadership, our own management. And maybe even we also would like to have a career plan supported by the management. Where do I go from this position? How can I improve my skills and where can I go to use it, so to speak? Yeah, could you shift again, Francisco? Yeah, but this is too big. You have to make it so that you can see the whole screen.
I'm not able to adjust.
Okay, try to shift to the next one. Let's see what happens.
So
yeah, show if you can just show that text. It's cut a little in the side.
It looks good on my side, Peter. It looks like we can see.
Okay, I can only see the birds. So if you can see both.
Oh, I can see both.
You can.
Let's check inside whether they can see me. Yes, I can see both. I can see the script and the birds.
Well, let's hope that everybody can, apart from me. It doesn't matter.
I'm just checking on that as well.
I know if you look at these birds, it's just a drawing from a book a textbook about leadership, mind my language, but the text would say something like, well, if you're in the top of a big organization and you look down, you see only shit. And then the seconds would be, well, if you are in the bottom of an organization and you look up, you see only assholes. And you can think about that while I speak on. But what did the young leaders say about the organization? They said the top people are far away. They are very high up and far away. And the middle managers are closer. Some of my leaders, a young leader would say, they're closer to me. And then, of course, I myself, as a young leader, I'm even closer to the core of what we do here. We work with the kids, we work with the young people. So there's a huge distance between the strategies and the executive level and where I am. when I ask about the top management, they say, when I look up, I don't see assholes. I see dedicated leaders, and I respect them a lot. But what we may say about ourselves here is that everybody has their eyes on the goals of the organization. We're all dedicated to assist, to help, to improve living conditions of kids, youngsters, and their families and their neighborhoods. That's where we have our focus. So you could say that the NACCW is very lucky. Sometimes when I work with organizations, I have to say to them, let's start with a big why. Why are you here? And sometimes they don't really even know. These people are able to say at once why we are here. So that's this wonderful, strong side. Then they say that there is less focus, or sometimes no focus, on leadership and management. So we all do the same. We try to help the kids. And, you know, from a distance, I would say with a smile, how wonderful that it isn't the other way around, that every leader was more engaged in my career, my learning, how I could become a better leader, but nobody cares about the kids. So it's wonderful that it's like that. But in the long run, it will cause problems if the NACCW, in my view, doesn't attack this item or work with it. It's not a threat, but it would really protect what you already accomplished and help you to the one or two next steps. Could you change again, Francisco, to the next PowerPoint? Yeah, young leaders. So when I ask them, what do you then really need? And I already talked about this huge dedication to the task and their enormous loyalty to the organization and to the leaders and the executives. But when we come to their own needs, my key question, like, have you ever thought about your own needs as a young leader? And several of these young people say two things. No one has ever asked me what I would need to become a better leader. But a lot of questions about what we could do better in the child and youth care work, in the core business, in the big why. And someone said, and now that I think about it, I myself have never asked myself, what would I need to become a better leader? That's a good question, she said to me, but I don't have any answers. So actually, with these 11 wonderful young people that I've talked to, I really had to put a little pressure on them to, can we talk about it? It doesn't matter that you haven't thought about it. It's not a problem. I'm here to learn, because I will give a proposition to the executive level on how to work with the young leaders. So I gave a lot of examples, and so there is no strong tendency on content, but on this slide you could see in the end, some say maybe something about conflict management, or maybe I would need to learn how to develop my staff better, or how can I have dialogues with them or with people outside? Or some would say there are these difficult conversations when there are problems or conflicts. I would really like to work with that. I don't know what to do when I'm in the middle of that. I have a lot of feelings, but I have no tools. So if I could have more tools, and some would say, I need to lead a meeting. Can one work with that or train that? And I would say, definitely. And then, of course, many of them say, we need to improve our skills in how to innovate our work and our organization. So that is a status. It's only 11 people. It might be a coincidence, but it all sounds more or less the same. So, Francisco, if you can switch to the last PowerPoint, this is up to now my proposal, and it's work in progress. So I just give this input because the conference is now, and I hope that someone will even comment when I start. it's only based on of 25 years of experience working in, as you heard from Francisco, in other countries. But a lot of this is what we would call generic. It goes in leadership roles in most democratic countries, at least. But of course, I have the doubts that the way I propose it would be relevant here. I propose that everybody continues their work. The executive level, when I asked how many young leaders would you say that somehow are engaged in your work, and they say it might be over 1,000. And I thought at once that is a very expensive thing in the time that people put in it, or the money it will cost. So I think we should say, if there are around 1,000, let's work with 100. That's what we did in this 4 or 5 year program around the safe parks. And then we thought about it as training the trainers. So the people who go into this leadership program, they might also, at parallel, we could rehearse in how to train others in leadership, how to bring on some of the things they learned here. That went well the first time. So if you imagine, we say around 100, we divide them in 5 groups, young leaders, 1 or 2 Danish professors, teachers, experts, whatever we call them. I would be one of them, and I would bring in different people in each model. And imagine 4 modules. A young leader stays in her work, but 4 times during a year, she will leave for a whole week to somewhere where we can be all the time. Sleep over, we work till we drop, and we continue next morning. So it's intensive, but only 4 modules, 4 or 5 days, full time. No mobiles, no computers, no external noise. We train, we work. And then, as you can count out, there will be 3 months between each module. And that will serve as training periods. What did we learn here? Go home and practice some of it. I will supervise training exercises and maybe keep people together in a small group of 3, supporting each other. And then they come back and we have another module. And then no academic program. It's probably not something that you could use going further in your formal training, but of course you will have some kind of certificate from my institute. Nothing or no reading. It's not academic. It's about input from us and a lot of training, a lot of discussions, working with who are you as a leader, exercises, role playing, all led by us. And well, as a typical Scandinavian way, we would want to learn from what we do on the way. So we would build a road as we travel, or build a ship as we sail. So I propose that we finish the first 1 year program with 1 group, and we evaluate it together, and we learn a hell of a lot. We change what should be changed. And then in the next round, maybe we start all 4 programs regionally, so that people wouldn't have to travel too far, and they could even become a network of young leaders for each other in their region. Yeah, that's more or less it as far as the time is. I see Francisco's eyes on the clock. I would have loved to say much more, but maybe that I will have another chance for that. So it would be more interesting if someone has thoughts about it, be it what a wonderful idea, or what a terrible suggestion, you should rather do this and this, or and any kind of comments. It's not the last suggestion. We are on the road with that. So please feel free to say whatever you like.
Peter, thank you very much. We are out of time.